Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Podcast Daily. It is Wednesday. It is the middle of spring break. And Berm called this show a potpourri.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's fitting. We don't have any real specific topic in mind today. And I realize that's not a great way to start the show. But if you hang on with us, maybe you'll get some entertainment value out of this. Maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. That is Berm over there. And Bill Landis. I'm Austin Ward. And what is going on right now where everywhere you turn, Ohio State and Notre Dame are finding these weird dance partners?
I think it's fun.
Whether is it? I don't
that you dance with weird people on spring break, so it makes sense for me.
That's true. Yeah. Who was the weirdest person you danced with on spring break, Berm?
I can't talk about that on this show.
Okay.
But
no matter what we're talking about, Ohio State and Notre Dame seem to wind up paired off together. In the middle of the night, a national basketball writer says that Notre Dame is going after Chris Holtmann. A 2023 kid is released from his letter of intent. Suddenly, Ohio State offers and jumps in the mix for him. We spent all offseason talking about James Laurinaitis and Marcus Freeman and the poverty program that can't afford to pay any of its coaches, which I don't know how they would afford to buy out Chris Holtmann, but that's something else I guess we can get into. But is this like the new rivalry? I don't understand it. Why do we have to keep talking about Notre Dame?
For two teams that have played each other 6 times in 100 years, they are, combined a lot, and it's fine. I think that there's actually a large percentage of like the big time boosters at Ohio State and the long time, alum who like being compared to Notre Dame and like this kind of symbiosis that's happening. I personally don't care for it. I think Ohio State needs to be worrying about Alabama and Georgia, but Notre Dame keeps finding its way into the conversation. So kudos to them.
I think they are probably more similar than they are different, right? Just as like athletic entities. I think Ohio State has more money and is willing to throw it around more and be more aggressive in that way. But
yeah, I don't know if they have more money, but they're definitely more willing to throw it around.
Right. Willing to allocate those resources where it matters most, i.e. football. But I think, even like Gene Smith, the athletic director at Ohio State, is a Notre Dame graduate and probably on some level would like Ohio State to be considered in the same vein and as far as being an athletic institution that does things the right way and has Midwestern values is concerned. So whatever that means, but they're kindred spirits. I think
it's like, oh, my bad. Let me get by you there, and we'll just join you over there on the 50. That's weird.
What?
But the Holtmann thing's weird, though, right? The Holtmann thing's weird because, as you just mentioned, Austin, like Ohio State just signed him to a fairly large contract extension a year ago. I don't know all the particulars about his buyout and all of the wiggle room to get out of it, but it doesn't seem like it would make sense for Notre Dame, of all teams, to be willing to pay that. And while there are certainly some Ohio State fans who would be like, oh, Ohio State should just let him go and level up, I don't know that's the way it would work, but the reality is it's $17 million or something like that, right? I mean, that's owed.
That would be if Ohio State fired him. If he, I was looking this up the other day. If he were to leave, I think prior to June, I can't remember if it's June 1st or June 30th, but sometime in June, it's like $2.5 million that he'd have to pay, which is what the next school would just pay. But even that, it's $2.5 million on top of then what you would pay him as a salary to be your head coach. That doesn't seem like something Notre Dame would do. I want to be clear. Like, he's not going to Notre Dame. I would be shocked if Chris Holtmann goes to Notre Dame.
I'm not sure I see the value. I don't look at the Notre Dame program versus the Ohio State program. And I understand there's someone who would be like, well, at Notre Dame, maybe there's less pressure. Like, there's not a lot of pressure on the basketball coach at Ohio State right now. They just finished with a losing record, and he's not getting fired, right? So that's indicative of a program that is kind of okay with where things are, don't you think?
Yeah, fan pressure and like actual pressure from decision makers are two different things, and I don't think Chris Holtmann has any of the latter.
Which is part of the problem, in my opinion, which I've made clear many times going back last year and well before that. I don't think he's going to leave, but Bill, I'm not sure that I would be that surprised if he gave it more thought this year than he has with other jobs that have been offered to him in the past. I do think that the fan pressure here, as minimal as it may be in reality, is wearing on him. I don't think that he handles it very well. I think he's amongst the most sensitive to criticism of any coaches that I've been around in my career. I don't know that he would even contest that. I think that he's aware that that's part of his personality. You don't keep manila folders full of people slighting your program if you're completely tuning out any criticism of yourself. Like he's keenly aware of it. Resetting the clock on his career may be beneficial to him if they go with what the talent they have coming back next year and it doesn't work out, or if Bryce Sensabaugh leaves this summer, like the situation gets pretty bleak for him. Now he does have the benefit of, if he loses that job, everyone in the national media will make sure that he gets another one, but he also would have a huge pile of money if he did get fired by Gene Smith. So he's in a comfortable situation at Ohio State. That's the reality.
Chris Beard is going to get a new job like tomorrow. And
he's already got one.
So like he's always going to have another job. He's a very good basketball coach. He's a great guy. Like the reality is he's going to have more talent coming back to Ohio State next year than he's ever had in one season at Ohio State. Just more NBA type talent on the roster than he's ever had in his life. You go to Notre Dame and you have none of that. So I don't think that's.
But that's a 1 year proposition.
I don't know what it is though, because that's the way college basketball works. You get NBA players because you have NBA players, right? So the more there's a mindset sometimes like, oh, why recruit a guy like Bryce Sensabaugh if he's going to leave? You recruit a guy like Bryce Sensabaugh because you need more one and done type players to compete at the national level. And a guy like Holtmann, who is a player's coach, right? That is who he is. He is a player's coach. In my mind, I think you have to have those elite players that are going to leave, because he's going to need guys to, at times, win games for him, because the offense, generally speaking, isn't really like constructed to do it on its own. Like you need dudes. And I think you get more dudes when you have players leave early. Does that make sense? Am I just talking?
Wasn't his
Disney music?
I mean, wasn't not yet. Wasn't his greatest period of success like without NBA guys? I mean, it seems like the more talent the higher level talent he brings in, the worse the chemistry is on his teams and the worse they perform. Maybe that's a wrong read on this situation. I mean, outside of year one and maximizing Keita, like, tell me how he really got the most out of that high level talent that he's brought in. I would listen to it. I don't know. The results have progressively gone down, and some of the recruiting has gotten much better.
I think that's actually the area where he needs to make the biggest adjustment as a coach, is realize that you have these dudes, play these dudes, right? And that there was an article in The Athletic earlier this week about how Gene Smith had a conversation with Holtmann about playing the young guys. Like, that conversation happened before the season started. That was not news. The reality here is that he had to change his mindset halfway through the season and say, hey, well, this season's pretty much over now. Let's just run it out and see what happens. I hope, much like Ryan Day a year ago, heading into the Georgia game, the hope has to be for Ohio State that something clicked that said, oh, crap, maybe this is the way I have to go, because this effort was a lot better. I got a lot more feedback from my team, and I was more focused on, not trying to save people's egos by playing the veterans who weren't ready to go, much like Ryan Day with play calling and being a little more loosey-goosey. Like, I think that that's the area where Chris Holtmann has to make the adjustment. And I don't think that happens naturally for some guys. Like, you want to give the ball to your veterans and the guys that have been there a long time, because that's what you're told growing up. Like, the experienced guys are what you need, but that's not the way basketball is played anymore.
Well, thank goodness he had Gene Smith around to correct his roster in the middle of the season. Like, great work by the athletic director.
That's a take. That's a take.
I know that didn't happen, Berm. That was a joke. I don't find this funny. I do think that it's interesting though, Bill. Like, this is a guy that realizes he's got 2 tiers of talent on his team. All of the best talent are freshmen. So how hard is it as a coach to say, you know what, I have to just abandon everything I've done for the last 15 years that made me super successful and a coach of the year in 3 different conferences, and say, screw it, I just have to trust these young guys and ride with the mistakes? Because I think that's what drives them crazy. Like, just mistakes that are stupid. But the problem is, it was the veterans making the mistakes that were stupid all year long.
Yeah, I think it's funny to me that I do think he did get caught in a position where he didn't want to play the young guys. Like it was almost the behavior of a coach who did feel like he was on the hot seat, even though he wasn't. He had a lot of protection with this contract extension to play the young guys. And he would probably say, like, we did play the young guys. But if you like look over the course of the season, like in the middle of that January, February, veterans were playing a significant chunk of those minutes. And I don't think it's a coincidence that they played better once that changed a little bit. I don't know. It's hard. He since he's gotten here has ascribed to the idea that old wins in college basketball. I do think that is the case. There are not a whole lot of programs built on one and dones that are making runs and winning conference championships anymore. I think there's a balance you have to strike there, but it was always odd to me, like the investment he seemed to be putting into guys who weren't going to be here for more than a year, when maybe that investment should have been in the guys who could be here for 2, 3, 4 years all along. And maybe over the course of this season, he came to that realization too, and that will be the case moving forward. We'll see. Like, I don't even know, his contract is such, it's like, I don't like, maybe regardless of what happens next year, he's probably still here too. And he and Gene Smith like made this decision to sort of like invest in this idea of roster building, and Gene to invest in Chris as the guy to kind of be the steward of that. And we'll see where it gets them. It's a little bit of a radical idea in a world where teams just seem to be like reloading every offseason with transfers and trying to win that way. Ohio State's going to try to do it differently, and we'll see if it works out for them. But it'll be interesting to follow. I don't really have a feel one way or the other whether or not it's actually going to work.
Yeah, but they're still going to add 2 or 3 transfers and have to do some roster shuffling. So I don't think you have to abandon it. I think generally speaking, that idea of old wins is true, as you said, but it's also much more true at Gardner-Webb and Butler than it is at high D1 basketball. Like, if you have elite players, those guys have to be your leaders. I mean, Duke, Kentucky, Kansas, they've certainly always been able to have some older veterans that stick around, but they're driven by the young guys, and you have to let the young guys lead and find veterans who are willing to step back. Much what Justice Suing did in the last 5 weeks or month of the season was when he started to play better basketball, is when he decided, I'm just going to take a step back. Now, he had to shoot the ball a lot more in the Big Ten tournament because Bryce, missing the last 2 games, but he was also making shots. So I guess at that point you can feel better about it. But speaking of contracts, do you guys think the letters of intent are stupid?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Why do players sign them? Like, why are we still in that world?
I don't know. I've often wondered why players ever sign a letter of intent when they don't have to, especially if you're over 18. You don't have to sign a letter of intent, but they do, and that's part of the gig. But Notre Dame released, as Austin said, Brandon Hillman from Portsmouth, Virginia, 6'1", 210-pound safety. He played a lot of quarterback a year ago, which is why I think he's a little bit lower rated on the Rivals.com network than he is in some others. The tape that he has out there is almost exclusively at quarterback. But he's like a 40-inch vertical. He's like a 4'6'5" kid. His wingspan's like a kid like 6'5", 6'6", so he's long, athletic. Ohio State clearly wanted a fourth safety when they were recruiting Caleb Downs. I'm surprised, because they added Jahad Carter in the transfer portal, that you still go out and try to find another one. But they offered this kid quick. So what does it say about the room that they currently have and where they feel like moving forward? Because you look at safety, we've joked about it. Like, there's already 9 guys at the position. Now you're looking to add a 10th. What does that say?
I don't know. They had some funny business with Jaden Bonsu. Maybe it says that that's a situation you can't be super confident in moving forward. I don't really know what they think of Cedric Hawkins, to be honest. Like, he's a guy we don't talk about like at all in this recruiting class. Maybe because he's just been committed for forever. I think there's a lot to like with Malik Hartford, but if you assess that group and think to yourself, like, this is a little light, and guys that we project long term as like being major pieces of the defense, and I can see why you'd want to do this.
I don't know that it's any kind of reflection on a lack of confidence in the depth that they have there or the talent. I think it's probably the opposite, in that, like, one way or another, Josh Proctor's career at Ohio State will be over. Lathan Ransom, you expect to be in the NFL. If Jahad Carter has a huge season for Ohio State, which
even a good
only
season.
he 2 practices in, you may lose again all 3 starters. And with the amount of safeties that Jim Knowles wants to play, you're going to have 3 in the base personnel grouping, and if you rotate at all, you're looking for upwards of 6 guys in that room that you want to play every year. And with turnover coming, I could see why they would want to stock up at that spot moving forward. I don't know if they will. There's a lot of competition to get in the mix here moving forward, but I don't take it. I wouldn't read anything really, any negative tea leaves into it. It's probably more a reflection of what they need moving forward.
Yeah, I think if let's say Brandon Hillman decided on Ohio State, he's considering Michigan, LSU, Virginia, a lot of other schools that have offered him in the last 2 days. If you look at that 10-guy depth chart at safety, I think 6 of them you really are only expecting to have 2 more years of. So there is certainly reason to begin trying to repopulate it now. But there is a lot of upside, and we can, we'll talk a little bit more about him. Andrew and I have a talking stuff that will run later on Wednesday. So that is fascinating, though, because it's very rare to offer a 2023 player or a player that's already signed, 3 months ago, and then he's available now. And it's kind of wild seeing all these teams like scurry to him, be like, oh, new guy.
Can he play Jack, Berm?
I don't think so, but there is a lot to like on the athletic profile. I mean, really a sturdily built kid. I like that word, sturdily.
It's funny to see a safety, and then like if you look on at least a 247's page, it says had the highest testing score at the Elite 11 in a quarterback competition.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch his tape, it's almost exclusively at quarterback. But I think most of that, there's like 3 passes. So it's not, he's a kid that pulled it and ran and was very effective, but certainly not how you want to build a quarterback. But if you look at him as a safety, you can see why people are interested. I do actually think there's a comparison between him and Bonsu physically that it makes it interesting for Ohio State, because I do wonder how long that lasts after the December dance that happened with Jaden Bonsu in Ohio State. I hope I'm wrong. Bonsu won't even arrive until June. So this kid could be arriving at Ohio State the exact same time if he decides to pick Ohio State. He'll visit, I think, next week, not this week, because all the staff is on spring break. But
now he knows what the going rate is for a safety in the 2023 class.
Well, I'm sure he's going to get a better offer from a financial standpoint than he was getting from Notre Dame. Not that that's why he left their class or requested the release, but it's fascinating nonetheless.
Well, many people are saying Notre Dame is just a knockoff Ohio State.
That's what I've heard. I don't believe it.
It's a better version.
They were different colors.
Notre Dame.
What? Isn't it? It's just funny though that how it all started. Like clearly Notre Dame is trying to make an effort to emulate Ohio State on the football field, and Ohio State seems to be making an effort to emulate them off the field. It's a very strange situation. Is that? I mean, am I wrong?
Maybe they should combine programs.
If they were one mega program and they played half of their games in the Horseshoe and the other in front of Touchdown Jesus, I think that would be the envy of college football. You could just call it Midwestern Values University.
Or what if they played every game in Fort Wayne just for fun?
No, that wouldn't be fun for anybody.
Just pick a different grass lot in Fort Wayne every weekend.
Why do you want that?
Park on the street.
Builds character.
I don't know.
You got Notre Dame out there trying to hire every Ohio State coach so that they can change their athletics. And then you've got Ohio State being like, well, we don't want to be like Georgia and Alabama. We don't want to drop too much money out there for recruits. We want to pride ourselves on doing it the right way. The Notre Dame way.
I think you should try to do things the right way. But also, I think you need to be realistic when everyone else is clearly not. You know?
Who's to say, Berm? Who's the arbiter of right and wrong in college football?
I don't know. The guys on Twitter.
Which one?
Oh, you know who I'm talking about.
Dov Kleeman?
No.
Who is Dov Kleeman? Oh, the Aaron Rodgers guy. Yeah.
The Aaron Rodgers guy. Who has like no real picture anywhere. Nobody knows who he is. Garrett Wilson was going to him for all of his news, apparently.
Maybe it's Aaron Rodgers himself. Maybe like when he was in his pure darkness retreat, he decided to create a burner.
I mean, this account's been going for a while. It's got like 150,000 followers. It just aggregates
Yeah, but Aaron Rodgers can buy followers, so I'm not going to rule that out. You know, but it is interesting though, right? We're talking about football, the NFL. We're a week away from Pro Day, and I'm curious for you guys, what do you think Jackson Smith-Njigba will run in the 40? Or do you think he will say at the Ohio State Pro Day, I'm not going to run the 40?
I think he'll skip it.
Yeah, I think he'll skip it. Why would he run it? Like, what's his like 3 cone was off the charts at the combine, which matters way more than a 40 time. I don't know what he'd have to gain from it.
I don't know either. That's why I'm like, but the whole talk was at the combine, when we get to Pro Day, I'll run the 40 there. So does it change between now and next Wednesday?
I don't see how it would change his stock. A lot of the talk when we were in Indy, Berm, was like, how much what would this time help him? Can he make sure that he can solidify a first round? And then he went out and ran routes, blistered the 3 cone and the shuttle and all that stuff, and showed the short range quickness. Like, it's the stuff that he's always done. Whoever watched his tape from 2 years ago was like, wow, what's really missing from this guy's game is straight line 40 speed. If only he had that, he'd be a great wide receiver. No one was saying that.
If I wanted to spend more time editing this video for publication, I would go back to Roosters 2 weeks ago when we talked about Jackson before the combine, and someone, I believe it was me, said that he'll run the fastest, shuttle and time, the cones and the 3 cone. And I would pat myself on the back, but that's not who I am.
That'd be some fancy editing if you put yourself.
I'm not
patting yourself on the back.
I'm not going to pat myself on the back.
2 versions of Berm, and then you virtual reality pat yourself.
Just make it look like you don't in the outfield, like you're sitting there, like going like this, and then you're behind yourself, like rubbing your shoulders.
I can do that. I don't. I knew.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
I knew he was going to dominate those drills, but I do wonder, just from an ego standpoint, if a guy wants to get out there and say, "Look, I am a 4.45 guy, and you can all shut them up." You know what I mean? Because he's a
audio skip there.
Yeah, he's a competitive kid, so I think that there is a part of him that's going to want to go out there and prove it. Because it shows that he's fully healthy. More for anyone who has lingering doubts that the hamstring could pop again at any moment because he ran 1.9 route against Iowa and it broke again. So I think he might want to prove that to himself. So I'm curious if that's what's going to really motivate him to do that. I'm sure that it's going to be interesting to watch as the scouts, because I think every team will be there, right? Like they're all going to be like, "Oh, let's watch."
I've never heard them say that there, but they might. You know how we've felt like maybe Cam Brown was getting bad advice about not working out, Berm?
Yeah.
Like, I think it would be horrible advice for Jackson's crew to be like, go run the 40, bud. We know you want to. Like, it's for your confidence and a booster. Like, no, you don't need to do it. Don't do it.
If it changes him being the 16th pick to the 9th pick, is it worth it?
But why would that?
I think he might already be the 9th pick.
Well, I don't know. The Bears right now all of a sudden have 3 almost competent receivers, so I don't know that they would.
Well, I mean, in that general area,
one of them's Chase Claypool. So
I said almost competent. Okay. There's a big
keep bashing Notre Dame on this show.
There's a big qualifier. The memo. A big qualifier there. I said almost competent. Obviously, Paris Johnson makes the most sense for the Bears, or Peter whatever his name is at
Gronkowski.
Peter Gronkowski. Peter
Skronk.
He's Skronk. Yeah. He's Skronk.
Baby Skronk.
No, I mean, but who else are you guys looking forward to really watching on that day to see like something different? Because we're not going to talk about the pro day really next week, because we're going to talk about current Ohio State football players. So what do you like pro day at the school? Because I kind of hate it.
I'm not a huge fan. I don't like they like stick us in the corner. We have a terrible vantage point. Like, they clearly don't want us there. Just like, I guess you can come watch this if you want to. There can be like decent interview opportunities afterward, depending on how nice the players themselves want to be. And they're usually fairly nice, I guess. But it's a long day, and I don't love it.
I've had a couple opportunities in the last decade to go a little out of the corner pin with the rest of the media and do some all access things. And I think that we may be doing that next Wednesday as well as part of the Cam Brown Dream Chaser series. We'll see how how that goes. But once you're out there, and sometimes Jerry lets that happen for everybody, and you can mingle around, and you find yourself standing next to Mike Vrabel as he's evaluating a defensive end. You pick up some really intriguing stuff. Like, I find that to be entertaining. If it's a pro day where you are stuck in the corner and can't go talk to any of the NFL representatives or be around the players and, talk about the experience that they're going through, yeah, it's brutal. But 33% of the time, it's really cool because it is a life-changing day for them. It's, the workouts themselves, I mean, who cares? The 40s, that's just a track meet. It doesn't really excite me, but a lot of the rest of it, especially when you have a quarterback involved, that gets to be pretty fun.
I mean, last year it was clear on Pro Day that Mike Vrabel wanted Nick Petit-Frere, watching him do extra work with him. So that you kind of get a little insight into some things, I guess, like that. But with CJ, I'm curious. I think most of the NFL guys are going to be like, can we get Marvin to play around out here? Can we get Marvin to run around?
I bet he will. I bet he does.
I mean, that's going to be, I think, the show of shows is Marvin. And I don't know if Emeka is ready to do that type of stuff with his, rehab, or Julian, but Marvin and Jackson out there together. It's sort of that bittersweet moment of going, what did we miss? What did we miss?
Hadn't thought about that. Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, they'll have him out there because CJ presumably will need more than one receiver to throw to besides Jackson. And if they don't have I'm not forgetting like a glaringly obvious other receiver they have in this draft, right? No. So yeah, I think Marvel will be out there. It'll be the same deal as it was last year when it was like it was Garrett and Chris's pro day, but it was like actually CJ's pro day. It'll be the same thing for Marvin, I think.
That's what I was gonna say. Like that, if you think back to last year, that one was pretty cool because it wound up being a CJ Stroud performance for the ages. It was like, hey, and that's also why it's amusing that we're going through this whole process again where everyone is trying to elevate Anthony Richardson or Will Levis. Like, he's already even had a pro day. All these guys have already put him through those workouts. They already saw some ridiculous nonsense from him on the field with his crazy arm. And they're like, well, no, we're going to have to go through this whole process again. He was a Heisman Trophy finalist without Garrett and without Chris, without Jackson. I still don't believe it. Go out there at pro day and prove it.
Prove it again against Air, please. We need to see more.
Wow.
That's what they're saying, Bert. Watch this.
Yeah.
They did let us go. I forgot last year they let us go and like stand behind CJ as he was throwing. That was cool. Yeah. So if we get to do that again, sign me up.
If I can get a chance to talk to Zach Taylor, I want to say a couple things.
Uh-oh.
Number one,
how dare you?
I'm sort of sorry, I guess. I was a little harsh on him early in his Bengals career, in his Super Bowl season, and during this season. I've been a little harsh. I'm still waiting to see the next level stuff, that next. I would like to talk to them about why I believe they need to draft Bijan Robinson in any way they can. So if Zach Taylor,
it's going to be harder when the Eagles draft them.
Yeah, this is my concern, you see. And the Chargers on Tuesday deciding that they're going to let Austin Eckler go out and seek a trade. That was the team I was worried about, like making a move for Bijan. Because I think that's sort of a missing piece to their offense. You have one guy, you already have Eckler, but Bijan's like, zip, zip, whoop, whoop, dab. So he's a little different. You know what I mean? I just want to talk to those guys about it, but that's probably all I need to say.
I think he's definitely coming to Columbus looking for your draft advice.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense when you put it that way.
He's come to the coaches clinic, so he knows how important Jerry is as a gatekeeper. He's going to, Jerry, can you get this guy out of here? He's trying to get me to draft a running back in the first round. He hasn't consulted the draft value chart.
It's like
get him out of here.
28, 29 pick. It's basically the second round. It doesn't even count as first round.
All right. By the way, do you guys think it's weird that they're having Mark Stoops come to the coaches clinic?
Yeah, I do.
Seems like an odd choice.
It's not.
I don't know what value he's going to add to the conversation for Ohio State.
Well, he's an Ohio guy, so obviously he's a Youngstowner. You just want guys that are connected to Midwest football, and Kentucky loves recruiting in Ohio. It makes sense. So it's rub your
back. So why would you make sense? That's why it doesn't make sense, Perm.
Disagree. Number one, Ohio State and Kentucky aren't competing against each other for recruits in Ohio. Number two, you'd rather have those tier B kids go to Kentucky than Michigan. That's why. You'd much rather have
that. Makes a lot of sense.
Wow.
Berm just totally flipped that on us, Bill.
No longer think it's weird. Okay, I'm in. I like it.
Especially now that Luke is not at Cincinnati, you lose some of the juice there because you're not going to tell kids to go play for Scott Satterfield or whatever his name is at this point.
That is his name. Yeah.
I get Scott Satterfield and Marcus Satterfield confused. I don't.
No relation. I've looked it up several times.
Which is, to put that on the list of things I wouldn't have guessed today. Watch this. That's probably a good spot to end this. So.
Yeah, it was a great show. Like I said right from the start, I didn't know what anyone was going to get, and
I hope there was some insight in here, not just tomfoolery. That's what I'm really aiming for, a delicate balance of tomfoolery with insight sprinkled on top. You've
been really latched on to that tomfoolery word this week.
Well, I think shenanigans is overplayed.
Okay.
And I don't want to use grab-assery on the show too much because I feel like it's, improper.
Uncouth.
It is uncouth. That's the word I was looking for.
Yes. We do try and play things very straight-laced on this show all the time.
Straight down the middle.
Yeah, that's right. That's what we do. That's what we're famous for on the podcast and on the Podcast Daily. Hope you have a wonderful hump day. And we'll be back again with more tomorrow. See, straight down the middle. Normal. That's what normal people say. Happy hump day. Just walk around the cubicles. Hey, happy hump day. Which is what we have here at the podcast too. Our own cubicles. That's Berm, Bill. I'm Austin, and this has been a show. We'll talk to you tomorrow.